Greetings. I am Joseph Bulkin. If you have made it this far, first of all, congratulations. The show is almost over. As I've stated before, Dark Souls is my second favorite game of all time. I'd like to talk about the game and its facets in a general sense. You can go get some popcorn because, this will be a long one. I'll start off with some shorter ideas before we get to the meat of this. The first one on my list here would be the characters. This means the characters we talk to on our journey and or bosses. I've said before that my favorite character is Siegmeyer of Katarina, and my love for him has only grown after his sacrifice in Lost Izalith. In my opinion, that's Lost Izalith's redeeming quality. But we haven't seen his story to the end, so I'll stop here. As for my least favorite character, without a doubt it would be Dummel of Xena. Who? Yeah, I forgot him too. In all honesty, he's a character who has no reason to exist. After this, we got music. Overall, a lot of the soundtrack consists of Discord, but this style can work. If I had to pull up my favorites, it would be Taurus Demon, Iron Golem, Unseen and Smo, Moonlight Butterfly, Gravelord Nito, Four Kings, Artorias, Calamite, every non-boss theme, and one other theme we have not heard yet. Presentation. I believe this game still holds up with its graphical style in 2021. It's not about graphics, it's about a dedication to art direction. You know what I mean? Blighttown and Orlando, the Painted World, Ash Lake, New Londo, and so many more don't just look the part, they sound the part too. Take the whispers in the Duke's Archives, the crows and wolves in the Painted World, or the moans and groans of the bloatheads in Ulasil. But there's just one issue with the presentation. You've heard it before. Sudden ambience cuts that turn up throughout the game that require you to reload. You've seen them before, and this is something I wish would be fixed. Right. Now that we're done with the little things, let's dive just a bit deeper. A bit into the medium. Level and world design. Well, for the most part, pretty much every level is designed the same. You deal with the set of challenges, fight enemies along the way, and fight a boss at the end. Thing is, it's not as linear as it would sound, and not as linear as it would later become. This game does not have linear level design. No way. Take the Undead Burg. If I had to think of more linear levels, they would most definitely be in the second half of the game. You know, with the Lord Souls. I've said before that the world of Lordran is built like a Metroidvania at times. Since the moment you appear in Lordran, you don't have to go straight to the Undead Burg. You could go to New Londo and pick up a Firekeeper soul. You could head to the Catacombs and fight Pinwheel immediately. That'd be suicidal, but you could still do that. Or if you have the Master Key, you can head into the Valley of the Drakes, from there into Blighttown or Darkroot Garden. But I've also said as the second half comes forth, you know, with hunting the Lord Souls, that the Metroidvania design goes away. I personally have no problem with this. I do, however, dislike the piss-poor balancing that comes with non-linear quests in an RPG. Mainly the fact that you get stronger, but your enemies can't compensate. I can't think of a better solution without reworking the entire second half. So, it's better off the way it is, in my opinion, except for, you know, the obvious. I also neglected to mention that Lordran and its surrounding lands are my favorite universe in fiction. And I'll just let that stick there. Next, what I would change. Lost Izalith, that whole area, boss included, needed a serious reworking that the remaster didn't give it. But hey, at least it fixed the frame rate, looking at you, Blighttown. And if anything else, I would change the way to reach Darkstalker Koth from changing it from fighting the 4 kings before you place the Lord vessel instead to beating all 4 lords, and then you'd be greeted in the abyss by him. I'd also want to bring back the Cut Shiva of the East questline with, you know, the Chaos Blade. Since, honestly, there's no reason for this questline to have been cut. No reason at all, in my opinion. It could have fit just fine with Shiva as he was in what we got. I think the questline could have worked. What I would remove altogether: the BS giant cats, the BS coffin in the Tomb of the Giants with 9 giant skeletons in it, the Bed of Chaos's Leap of Faith, the harmful effects of Curse having your HP without you knowing it, causing you to go out of your way for a cure, the BS dogs in the Capra Demon fight, and of course, the BS skeletal beasts also in the Tomb of the Giants. That was a short one, but I'm glad I got it out of the way. Bosses. The same way Dark Souls revolutionized difficulty in mainstream gaming, #prepare to die, it also made bosses threatening again. You can't exactly go through a fog gate the first time and expect to come out on top. And the difficulty of some of the bosses is what makes them stick in a player's mind. My personal first hurdle was Ornstein and Smo, but now that I know what to do, I can't lose. Then again, though, there are some bosses in this game that to this day I have never lost to. To this day I have never lost to Manus. Never. He can't beat me. Other than him... Actually, I can't think of any other bosses that I remember being able to beat on the first try and I've never lost to. Not sure. I'm thinking right now, so give me some space. Oh, Nito. Also, Gravelord Nito. I've never lost to him. Surprisingly, Pinwheel killed me once, though. But Nito and Manus have never beat me. Not once have they beat me. Oh, I also got another one, Quelaag. I've never lost to Quelaag. Or the Demon Fire Sage. And there are even some regular enemies that can pose some big hurdles in your quest. Take the Bone Wheels, or the Black Knights that you can fight from the beginning of the game at Undead Burg. In fact, I remember being stuck at... Yeah, there are actually a lot of enemies in this game that might as well be mini-bosses, like the Harpies. Especially since most of the time they gank you. But I guess that's what makes the enemies and the general challenges feel rewarding, especially on subsequent playthroughs. That once you know what to do, you can't lose. Other than my failed attempt at Calamite, I haven't died to a single boss in this Let's Play. And I think that's it for bosses and enemies. Now let's go to combat. The lock-on system. Debuting in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time has only been improved upon since. I ask only this. Why don't more action games use this system? It guarantees that you can't lose track of your foe through no fault of your own. There's no way that that an enemy can go behind you without you knowing about it. And to make sure that you can keep your distance without having to constantly move the camera around. So you won't be swinging wildly and you'll get a direct hit every time. In fact, without the lock-on system, I think using spells would be a lot less useful, because you'd have to manually aim, and that sounds awful. And another interesting feature of combat, the stamina bar. Most games don't have this, but it makes sure you can't attack wildly with your light attacks, or you can constantly hold up your shield, because that when that stamina bar goes down, you can't attack, you can't run, and your block will be broken. It prevents turtling. It also prevents light attack spamming. Speaking of turtling, I really do appreciate that this is an action game in the 2010s that focuses on slow, methodical combat. Most other games of its kind won't give you a shield or expect you to memorize different combos. But in Dark Souls, you only need 2 attacks, a block, a kick, a jump attack, and a parry. It's simple, but simplicity is key. Less is more. Unless you're talking about lore, when less is never more. I meant in mechanics, less is more. Because some of my favorite games really only have 1 attack. And they make so much use out of that 1 attack that doesn't really matter. Your game does not need 9 attacks to be considered complex. But then again, those more complex action games that have they have fighting game combos, that's what they have. they they mostly have these different kinds of styles because you only get one way of fighting. No different weapons for the most part. Another place where Dark Souls provides. There are... Let's just say there are a lot of weapon classes. There are a lot, and they all have unique moveset, but all of them have the same general gist. Light attack, heavy attack, block, parry, or bash if you're using a great shield, kick and jump attack. They all have this, and it works. You don't need 9 buttons for attacks. Hell, you don't need the A, X, B, Y buttons for attacks. Dark Souls managed to show that too. But I think I've said my piece on the combat. I think I've had enough. Oh boy. Now it's time to get to the big topics I wanted to discuss today. Let's get to the first one. My take on DLC. Over the years, downloadable content has been given a very bad name by 2 specific companies, EA and Activision. They have turned the phrase from something brand new made by the developers after the game is out, to an excuse to slice the game in half and release it in 2 pieces on the same day of release at full price. This kind of scummy practice is unforgivable. So when you think like this, when people tell me Dark Souls has DLC too, what do I say? Number 1. At this point in time, Artorias of the Abyss comes with every copy of the remaster, which is the same price as the original for modern hardware. So, the thing about paying for this DLC doesn't even exist. 2. It was released after the game came out. And finally, number 3. Have you seen Artorias of the Abyss? 4 new bosses, with unique boss themes, my personal favorite area in the series. The ability to see the other 3 of Gwyn's 4 knights and the right to even battle them. New weapons, new armor, new sorceries, carvings. What more could you want? That is how I would defend Artorias of the Abyss, but in my honest opinion, I do not believe in paid DLC, because my favorite game of all time managed to make 4 content packs complete with new music and bosses absolutely free. I'm pretty sure if indie devs can afford to make free content later, so can the mainstream big budget AAA video game companies. And who knows, we might even get into my favorite game at some point, because I believe that I've done it a disservice. I think we'll go into it one day, but not today. We have a Dark Souls to deal with. Alright, we got another big one. Oh, get ready for this one. My take on spoilers. I wholeheartedly believe that anyone who's that tossed up about spoilers needs to seriously get a grip. Especially when it comes to a game like this. You know how many people I saw playing games like this with no outside information or experience who got their asses handed to them? Hundreds. Literally, hundreds. it'd be at this point that I'd have to mention one of, in my opinion, the worst YouTubers I've ever seen on this platform. He goes by Joseph Anderson. He had some choice words to say about Dark Souls. Mainly, he had this phrase that he had called the gotcha moment. A gotcha moment was, as he described, a moment where the only way to learn from a challenge is to die, and the game is not fair for forcing this death upon you. His examples of gotcha moments were the Hellkite Drake on the bridge after the Taurus Demon, the surprise of the Capra Demon boss fight jumping right at you with 2 fast dogs, the effects of Curse, the effects of Toxic. What else was there? He also mentioned the rising platform that leads to a ceiling of spikes in Sen's Fortress. He also mentioned the first Mimic. He mentioned the Inner Orlando Archers, and the Rafters with Painting Guardians. He mentioned the Forced Death to Seath the Scaleless. Or the fact that you wouldn't know to use the Covenant of Artorias to enter the Abyss. And I think this would be pretty much all of them. This is what I have to say to this. This is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I'm going to give a counter-argument against every single one of these gotcha moments, as he called them. The Hellkite Drake. Even if you don't know he's gonna be coming, I ran right past him in my Let's Play, and I survived. That's my excuse. I survived. If you died, well, too bad for you. You did something wrong. I blame you. Or the effects of Curse, and the fact that you'd have to go out of your way to get a Purging Stone to cure it. Well, as for Curse, you really shouldn't be getting cursed anyway, since the way Dark Souls wants you to handle enemies, especially basilisks, is to take them on one at a time, not have 5 of them spewing their curse fog at you at once. So if you really were that bad to get cursed, that's on you. As for the toxic status, as BS as it can be, I've memorized the level design of Blighttown, so I can't get toxic ever again, and I always use the spider shield to be able to block poisonous attacks. So, that gets rid of that issue. As for the first Mimic in Sen's Fortress, well, this is a house of traps. How can you trust a treasure chest that might as well be toppled over in a place like this? In fact, my first instinct was to attack it. Kind of. We'll get to that later. As for the rising platform leading to the ceiling with spikes, as soon as I saw the way out, I went out and I left the platform anyway, so I never even knew the spikes were there. As for the Painting Guardians, okay, that one's fine. Actually, I don't think he called that a gotcha moment. He didn't call it a gotcha moment. he described that as a moment where ranged play exponentially is easier than melee combat. Well, I didn't use melee combat, and I got killed by the rafters. That's something that actually managed to kill me. As for the Enerlondo archers, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's fair or not. Most times I've made it through with no sweat at all. In fact, it felt exhilarating going up the rafters, just barely rolling through those great arrows by the Silver Knights. Oh, I also forgot to mention another thing. The Capra Demon. I forgot to talk about Hit. In my opinion, the Capra Demon fights fine, except for those dogs. I'm perfectly fine with that demon being in a narrow, cramped space, because it doesn't have any ranged attacks, so can't exactly corner you that way. And the Taurus Demon doesn't have any gank squads with it, so why should the Capra Demon? Next would be the Forced Death against Seath. Well, I had the pleasure of equipping a Ring of Sacrifice when he killed me, so I learned the hard way. Or I learned the easy way. I never actually lost any souls to him because I didn't trust the game to let me keep my life anyway. But a lot of these things that I managed to avoid dying on, I managed to avoid them through outside information. I have never played this game blind. Never. In fact, some systems in the game itself seem to agree that outside information should be used for this game. Take the messages that can be left by anyone. Take the very detailed wikis on this game alone. Look at the thousands upon thousands of lore videos that were made to explain pretty much everything to idiots. Like this video right here. So, it is my firm belief that Hidetaka Miyazaki and the Dark Souls actively expect and want you to use the internet for help. I always thought that later playthroughs are better anyway. And this idea has never changed, because with later playthroughs, the frustration just goes away. Because you know what to do. It gives you time to actively appreciate the game for what it is. And I think we're getting up to another big one. I think it's time we finally talk about it. I'll just take a minute to breathe and drink for now. I'll be back. Alright. Here we go. The two main themes of Dark Souls. There are very few games in this world that I consider art. This is fine. Art is subjective, and this goes for any kind of media. But there's something that all art has shares. They all have levels. They all have dimensions of meaning. If I want to show Dark Souls off as art, I must be able to find its message, if it has one. The first major theme of Dark Souls is this: immortality is a bad thing. The obvious example here would be the undead curse. Sure, you get to live forever, but the moment you lose any purpose in the world, hollowing will be coming for you, to become just another mindless goon for any hapless traveler to slice down without a second thought. A lesser example would be the engorgement in the hollows of the painted world. This painting was supposed to be replaced to stave off the rotten stagnation of keeping the old painted world. Take the everlasting dragons. They lived forever, unable to be damaged due to their stone scales, but since they had no life to lose, they really did not have the emotions that the living had when they showed themselves at the appearance of the first flame. The dragons teased out our dearest emotions, as Hawkeye Goth said. But these emotions, the threat of losing one's life, the dragons could not understand. Seath himself couldn't understand it. That's why he was so appalled when he was born without stone scales at all. This is a theme that Miyazaki would play with a lot more going forward into the Soulsborne series. I do not think that Dark Souls 1 did it the best. The other, much more important theme for Dark Souls is that everything will eventually come to an end. Soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. The narrator even states it before she goes to the prophecy of the chosen undead. Most of our story is even about a god who refused to accept the end of his age and artificially extended it. Remember, this is the same guy who ended the age of the everlasting dragons, who refused to let his age pass. Instead of being tricked by Framp to do it again by linking the fire, the righteous path, in my opinion, is to make it all come to an end. Don't leave a trace behind. That was the whole purpose of our quest. You can interpret that to become the Dark Lord, all the remains of the previous stage must be destroyed. We destroyed Izalith, putting an end to all demons and subsequently ending her kingdom and her line. None of her descendants remain. They're either dead, or they've ceased to exist, like Quailana. We destroyed Nito, ridding the world of his poison and necromancy. The traitor Seath and his desperate attempts to keep his age alive have also been stopped by us in his own perverted ways, like making a god-dragon crossbreed in Priscilla, or experimenting on hapless maidens, creating the Pisakas in the Archive Tower dungeon, or slaughtering his own kind to give himself immortality so he would be immune to the effects of the passing of ages. There were some that tried to end this age of fire, like the Occult Rebellion, with Havel and Velka. Velka was banished to the Painted World. Havel was swiftly put down and locked up in the watchtower basement of the Undead Burg. If Gwyn had noticed quickly enough, Havel may have succeeded. He was a powerful human. With an occult club, he could have just bashed Gwyn's brains in and killed him. He could have done it. But since Gwyn had his Lord's Blades and everything else, there was no way this could have worked. But even though no. Let's get to that later. We destroyed the pantheon of Gwyn's 4 knights, and we vanquished our enemies. They hate us. We destroyed Manus, the only possible challenger to the title of Dark Lord, ridding the world of his corruption, and making more humanity phantoms like the ones you see here before you. We managed to wipe out some former dragons, like Calamite, or what was once the Gaping Dragon. But though the dragons are dead, one still remains in Ash Lake, completely immobile, completely oblivious. And there are some that worship it, hoping to become dragons themselves. And eventually, they will. It would be my idea that these humans, they could not become true dragons. They would become wyverns. Not like drakes. Wyverns are not descendants of dragons like drakes are. Wyverns would become humans who successfully became dragons. It's almost like the Age of Ancients is waiting to bounce back after our Age of Dark is over. And I'd also like to mention about this everything coming to an end that the moment most of the characters in our story reach their goal or lose their purpose, they hollow or they die by our hands. I'd like to say a little bit about Solaire. In my opinion, some say that saving Solaire is the best ending for him, since, well, you don't kill him in the end. But did you see him? He completely lost it. He had no purpose anymore. In fact, he was close to hollowing when we saw him. Hidetaka Miyazaki has said before that his that the preferred ending for Solaire is that he gets possessed by the Sunlight Maggot and you put him down. Because at least he gets what he wanted and his story can end. But if you spare him, he even asks, what now? What's he gonna do? He could not find purpose anywhere. In fact, he might even take his own life. I'd also like to talk about another character. Trusty Patches the Hyena. Miyazaki has said that Patches was his favorite character. He said that if any character represented him in Dark Souls, it would be Patches. Patches is the only one who survives. He's the only one who stays in Firelink Shrine after you meet him. After he tries to put you down and you forgive him, he makes friends with you. Because the fact that you chose to forgive him means that you understand exactly why he kicked you down into that pit. Because Patch's purpose in his own mind is to punish the greedy. As long as there would be greed in men in this universe, Patches would always be there to punish it. And I think that fits very well with Dark Souls too. Its general gameplay does punish greed. And since Patches is undead, he'll survive through every age. He'll always be there. Now that since I mentioned that after the Age of Dark ends, it might go back to an Age of Ancients, revert back to everlasting dragons and arch trees. That's because it will. Because these cycles repeat on a loop. Dragons, fire, dark. Since we've mentioned this, I think I'd like to bring up a quote by someone you might know. His name is Albert Einstein, and I think this quote fits very well with this idea. I do not know how World War III will go, but I do know that when it does happen, World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. It'll be brought back to arch trees and everlasting dragons, for a new flame to come forth and new gods to take it over. Then a new dark soul will come forth, creating new humans, and the humans will be subjugated by the gods, but they'll be taken over by humans anyway, in the approaching Age of Dark. It's inevitable. And I think I've done a good job at explaining these two themes. Now, before we get to the last topic of this video, I'd like to tell you a few things about myself. Not yet. Not yet. What I'd like to say is, I get the feeling that in this wonderful country of mine, I get the feeling that our age of fire is also slowly ending. And that some, in my opinion, monsters are trying to bring forth the Age of Dark. Despite the fact that someone took the time out of his life to stop this Age of Dark from happening, it was inevitable that it would be coming. I just wanted to put that into recording. Like a time capsule of sorts. Because if I make a video again in a few years, I'll tell you about the state of the world. I'll tell you if we've gone into an Age of Dark. Because at this point, the specter is coming. It's inevitable. There's nothing we can really do about it. Just survive. Hope you live. I get the feeling my life will be very, very different in a few years. I think I'll just leave it at that. Now I'd like to tell you a few things about myself. This entire Let's Play was created as a coping mechanism. Excuse me, I'll be back. As I was saying, this Let's Play was created as a coping mechanism, because someone who I long considered my friend, my partner, abandoned me. I felt abandoned. So, what I wanted to do was replace her. I had to replace her with you. By making these videos, I feel a lot better. I think I'd like to tell you some of my core beliefs too. One, that good and evil are subjective. Good and evil are whatever I say they are. They're all in your head. Good and evil's all in your head. But I have a clear idea of what evil is. I'd also like to say that those who I believe are evil should be punished heavily. Yes, I believe that you should punish those who deserve it heavily. And I think I'd like to talk about how important Dark Souls is for me. I said before that my partner abandoned me. I get the feeling that without this game, and my favorite game of all time, I would be a very different person. I'd have to say that without video games in my life, I would be very, very depressed. But I am not, because I have video games in my life, and despite what some people upstairs might think, I truly do care. And I am not a lesser person for believing that. I'm not a lesser person for caring. And I think I'm done telling you about myself. That's all I have to say about that. Now, for our last topic. What are the humanity phantoms? I've touched on this before that I'm not exactly sure what they are. Well, I still don't think I'm sure. If I had to talk about them lore-wise, I'd say they were humans who had their skin completely ripped off, all of their bodies ripped off, with just their humanity amplified and given form. That's probably what they actually are, but I can see things very differently from other people. So, when I look at these humanity phantoms, you know what I see? I, for some reason, see aborted fetuses. I don't know why, but I do. Look at them. They have no body of their own. They're just masses, just walking, just stumbling around in the darkness, just naturally being poisonous to you. Just look at those eyes. Wide, sparkling eyes, completely innocent. They really don't know how to fight. They really can't fight like a helpless infant. They don't drop many souls either, so highly doubt that that they've been around for a long time. They really have no soul of their own. And I think that, yes, these humanity phantoms, they remind me of aborted fetuses. Dark stuff. And that's why the Chasm of the Abyss is my favorite area in the series. And before I go, I'd like to say a few words. Don't add to this corruption. Don't bring more humanity phantoms into this world. The world's corrupted enough. The Age of Dark is coming, but it should not be like this. And I think that's all I have to say. Next time on Dark Souls, we head through the final door, destroy Gwyn, and become the Dark Lord. I'll see you then.